While we try to be as helpful as possible, this podcast should not be considered as professional or financial advice. It contains general information only, and you should seek out professional advice for your own personal circumstances before making any financial decisions.
All right, well, welcome back, guys, to another episode of...
The Enthusiast Lab.
Wow.
I forgot what my fucking podcast is called.
Welcome back to another episode of The Enthusiast Lab. I'm
Yes.
Julia.
And I'm Nick.
This is The Enthusiast Lab.
But we just said it before.
We're just moving on.
No, do you want to do that again?
No?
Oh. Oh, fuck.
Welcome back to another episode of The Enthusiast Lab. And today's topic that we are covering is, what is a building inspector?
Yes. Big one. So we've mentioned in some of our past episodes, especially about construction and shit, right, is I like to recommend to our clients, we know our builder does a killer fucking job. That's why we're very particular who we want to partner with. But at the same time, just to have that peace of mind during your build journey, because they do cost a bit of money, and just to have that third party, not even endorsement, just like view on your entire construction, making sure everything is according to standards and nothing gets missed. That, you know, this might be your first time building. You might not have actually know what the fuck you're looking at. You're just going, that's a slab.
Don't.
That looks
Yeah.
sick. Whereas, you know, there's a lot more going. Is it all measured right? Is the thickness correct? Are the right steel being used? Like, there's so much that comes into play with it. You know, have the right tie downs been done? When you're looking at, you know, the roof frame, like, yeah, cool. There's timber
It's
there.
a roof.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
There's a lot that comes into it because that's the structural integrity of your home. So you just want to make sure that everything is you know, up to spec. So that's why we recommend just to have that second opinion, that third party endorsement, just to let everyone know and go, look, these are some concerns we've had. They've had some concerns, working together and work towards your end goal to have a fucking killer built home.
Yes. So let's start with the first thing, which is, what is a building inspector?
The fuck is it?
Yeah. Wow.
Welcome to the Enthusiast Lab, where we give zero fucks about how we say things.
So the primary purpose of a building inspector is to check if there are any signs of defects and issues with the property, and it
Yes.
ensures the compliance with laws and regulations and advises on building requirements.
Yeah, so it's making sure that it's built up to the building code and national standards that have been set out for building. That's
Right.
what it's about.
Whether it's visible or hidden, internal or external, already happened or potentially will happen in the future. That's what they're looking for, essentially.
Yeah, in terms of concerns or shit that might arise later on.
Yes.
Yep.
And building inspectors do inspections on both established homes and houses that are getting built. But for obvious reasons, we'll be talking primarily on the building aspect of what a building
Yeah,
inspector
absolutely.
does.
But yeah, definitely, you know, for some people, building won't be the right thing. But definitely, if you are looking at purchasing a property, especially something that's a bit older, 100% do not put your money down until you've done you've got a building inspector that has done the inspection on the home. Just to, again, a lot of things can get covered up when it's an established property, but at least the structural integrity to make sure that whatever is there, if there are concerns, you tackle that now. You're not $500,000, $600K in debt, and then all of a sudden shit hits the fan and
Pipe bursts or something, yeah.
and shit's fucked. Like, try and mitigate those risks
Exactly,
as much as
yeah.
possible. That's what it's about.
So, first question is, how do you become a building inspector?
So this is actually a really interesting one. So when you're building and let's say you decide to nominate a inspector, 9 times out of 10, the builder will not accept a inspector unless they are a registered builder, and obviously done their tickets and shit like that, and then they give you the recommendation. But technically, on the technicality, to be the building inspector, you don't need to be a registered builder. You don't need to hold a ticket to be a builder. You need to have been in the building trade. and having a formal qualification in building surveying to work as an inspector, but you don't actually need to be a registered builder. So a lot of them will have your vocational education training, so your vet or uni, or sometimes both, in terms of a study pathway to actually become a building inspector.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the reason why builders require you to have a building ticket is because it's building, but to become a building inspector, it's just the study course for established homes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's also having someone that has put the time in terms of has been on the tools, but also is a registered builder. There's a lot more to it. There's only so much in terms of knowledge or like studying that you can do versus hands-on. It's very different. It's like being a surgeon. You can learn about the anatomy of a body, but being hands-on is very different. It's in an ideal world, this is how it is, but in person, it might be a bit different. So it's the same thing with building. It's in terms of the builder, they also want someone that has a bit of authority as well, going, okay, cool, you're an inspector, builds, blah, 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 but also at least be a registered builder that has done all of this and has done it previously, that has that on-hand experience, then we'll accept that report from that person. So you'd actually be surprised. Some of them, some builders might not give a fuck, but a lot of them will go, if it's not a registered builder, they won't accept it. So, and then you might be out of pocket. So make sure if you do choose an inspector that they are a registered builder, whether you're building in WA or Adelaide, just to cover your own ass, to make sure that the money you're investing, because you have to pay for it, that, obviously the builder's going to accept it.
Yes. So the next thing is, what does a building inspector look for? So there are 3 main types of things you might find in a report.
Yes.
The first one is a minor defect.
Correct.
So a minor defect is commonly identified in most properties, including cracking to walls and ceilings, corrosion materials, and general deterioration.
Yeah, or like, scratches on paint or like on frames and walls and stuff like that. It's minor things. They're not structural. They're not anything concerned, but it's still of note. Hey, we just want to note this down.
The next one is a major defect. And this is a defect that requires rectification works to avoid the development of unsafe conditions.
Yes, so that's the technical term of it. So
Yes.
what a major defect what you could potentially look at is if there's not enough tie downs in the brickwork or with the roof frame, that could potentially cause future, dilemmas down the track if there's like strong winds and shit, or if there's, cracked brickwork somewhere and water seeping through into the cavities, stuff like that. So there is some items, it might be the timber beams might be severely bowed, so they're out of tolerance, and that's a major defect going, it might not hold properly or whatever it is. So there is, like we've said, there's minor and then there's major. Majors when you start noticing going, basically it's fucked. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's that one step down going, oh, it's a bit of a concern. You know what I mean? It's like, you need to address this shit now, not a ship you right type of scenario.
And we rarely see these kind of defects.
Again, give or take with builders, we're very particular. It is common.
Happen,
It does happen. And this is why you're trying to get that extra opinion, to go out, that third party that isn't affiliated with the builder or anything, to go and inspect it, or to just make sure that everything is according to standard.
Yes. And the third type is a safety hazard. So this is any major defect that is an urgent safety hazard to the occupant. So it's like what you were saying with the structural beams. If there's strong winds and if there's a chance of it
ripping the fucking roof off or shit like that because it's not tied down. Like there's different ways of how it can be concerned, and they normally, in a building inspection report, they give you like quite a bit of a breakdown as well. So those are the things to really, when you're looking at it, is don't be too concerned if you see heaps of minor stuff and shit. Just look at the breakdown of how they've identified each of the items and then take it from there.
Yes.
And always query it with the inspector as well. If you're looking at it, you might get 10 pages and it's like minor shit. Just ask the questions, be like, hey, is this something that should be of a concern, or etc.
Yep. And now let's talk about the different stages a building inspector can come for.
Yes.
And what they're really going to be looking at. So the first stage, they come at 4 stages, which is...
You can choose for them to come at 4 stages.
Hold on. There are 4 stages that you can opt in for. Your slab, your bricks, your roof, and your practical completion inspection.
Yes.
So let's cover all 4, and then later down the track, we'll talk more about it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So the first stage is slab.
Okay, so with the slab, what the inspectors would like to go for is when they're doing the actual slab pour, it's hard to inspect it once it's already been poured. You can only see like the dimensions and thickness and shit. Whereas just before it's poured, they can go out and check that the trenches have been dug out correctly according to suit your footings and shit like that. Because that's where a lot of the structural component is into your footings of the slab. As well as the right steel reinforcements being used that the builder hasn't tried to cheap out and do minimal amount, because the slab of your home has to be according to engineering specifications. So obviously what happens is the inspector has a copy of those engineering drawings and what's required. So they want to be able to relay what the engineers recommended versus what the builder's done to make sure that they match. And if there are any discrepancies, you can pick up on it straight away. Fuck man, we have heard and seen some shit in the years where builders have even, have done the wrong survey and have built the entire fucking home a little bit too close where they should have because the boundary wasn't set out correctly. So having an inspector, they would have been able to pick that up.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes the supervisor isn't there for the actual slab pour and things can get missed.
Yep.
And it's an absolute shit show if it gets picked up later down the track. So it can be worthwhile doing a slab inspection with the inspector if you can time it right between liaising it with the builder and the inspector so that they can be there for it.
Yep. The next stage, which is bricks. So this is them inspecting the internal and external walls and brickwork.
Yes.
Making sure that everything's up to code, everything's up to standard.
Yep. So some of the common things they might look at is, the perp joints. So making sure that there's enough thickness of joints, that it's not too thick or too thin in certain areas, that there's an even gap, because they have guidelines on how much gap between each brickwork. On the bottom of around the perimeter of your home, every couple of bricks you'll notice that it has to have a weep hole in it, because because it's double brick in WA, it needs to allow for ventilation and stuff like that. So making sure that they've been delegated. If they haven't, it can be noted down. So it's shit like that, especially around the outside of the home. That's your face brick a lot of the time. So what that means is that's what the house is going to look like. So if there's discrepancies, there's chips on the brickwork and shit, this is what they're going to be picking up on to make sure that they're really going to town and to make sure that the walls are plumb. So that means that they are straight, especially building on long walls. Over time, the boys can go and have on the string line shit, but sometimes if it's not good workmanship, it can start bowing out. Again, there's slight tolerances, but if it starts going out of whack, it can be pretty fucked.
Yep. The next stage is your roof.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I'm
We've been doing a good job explaining, so I'm just going to let you keep going.
Fine. So the roof is going to be... So there's two ways that they can inspect it. They can do it once at the frame and once at roof cover. Normally, I think they wait until the roof cover is on, everything's on, and then they can do a full inspection. It's up to the inspector. Some of them might... It's so hard to try and divvy up because there's so many different inspectors with different expectations on what they do, right? But what they'll be looking at in terms of the roof is, number one, if the roof frame is done, making sure all the tie-down points are correct, that the pitch is correct, that all of the components, the structural components, have been secured and fastened correctly according to the codes that are required, because they'll say you need to have this amount of spacing between, locking in the different timbers and shit like that. So all those things come into play. And then when it comes to the roof cover, so obviously if you've got ColourBond sheets or tiles, making sure that with ColourBond that all the tech screws, are fucking done correctly, that they're tied down, they're not over tightened where they can break the seal, because then obviously there's potential for water to leak into the roof space. So it's really about figuring out all those little bits and bobs where it's going to be hard for you to see it from outside of the home. They might actually get a ladder and go up onto the roof and actually fucking really go into detail and really walk through the whole area and make sure that it's all according to both the building code as well as the national standards. And if there is any concerns, they'll be taking photos and then relaying, going, here's a minor defect or major defect in my opinion based on this, and they'll take photos and explain it, and then they'll be presenting that to the builder.
Mm-hmm. And the last one is your practical completion inspection, so your PCI.
Okay, so PCI, this is the big one. So if you do miss out on or you might not be able to afford getting an inspector for all the other stages, this is in my opinion, a mandatory one.
Yep.
So the reason why I say it's mandatory is mainly because this is just before you finish. So technically the house is meant to be complete. So you want to have someone going into that roof space, making sure, like we were saying, that they're checking all the tie downs, they're checking all the structural components, making sure that your insulation is installed. We're seeing it so often with some builders and with people posting and shit where that, you know, the inspector's gone out there and like the tradies have been moving shit around and they've moved the insulation and left it open and just they haven't been lazy. They're lazy enough to not pull it back. So if there's something that happens, it's going to damage the fucking ceiling. So something so small like that, you won't know unless you're going up into the roof space. And half the time you're trying to do the inspection with the supervisor, you're not going to go out there and you don't want to, shit, this is going to sound bad. You should be able to put all your confidence into the builder and the inspector, but it's always good because you're the one paying for this. It's always good to cover your own ass. And if you're not able to go into the roof space, especially, and checking all these things, making sure that all the ducts are connected, everything's been flumed correctly to what's required.
All the PowerPoint covers are on, all that kind of stuff.
All that shit, but we're just the roof area is the biggest one that gets missed all the time. Make sure that you've got someone that knows their shit and is going out there and doing all the inspections. And then in the internal of the home, making sure, like we had mentioned before, about the doors. So the doors in the bathrooms and shit, everything is being sealed and painted, because if not, over time, moisture can damage those doors, and it's a requirement. It has to be sealed and painted. So just all those type of things. It's make sure the functions work, that the fall correct in the wet area tiling, because in the wet areas they're all tiled. So you got to make sure that the fall is correct or within the tolerances. If it's not, or there's lips going, it can be a trip hazard or it can damage shit. There's a lot to it. So it's basically going through the home with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah.
That's what it's there for, and I really do recommend it's worth the money to invest it. Not every inspector is the same, and there is a bit of a clash between builders and building inspectors because look at it from two ways. The builder's doing a certain amount of things and they've got a plan of attack. Then you've got to look at from the building inspectors, and they're coming in as a third party out of nowhere, and they're charging, we have seen for some inspections, anywhere between $400 to $600 up to $1,000 for one inspection, which might be for like 1 to 3 hours, if not longer. So the way I see, and I've spoken with many fucking inspectors over the years, and we actually work alongside with a few. We were really happy with their workmanship and what they've provided to the clients and builders. And we're just getting some info, relaying from them. And they were saying that there are a few companies out there that go on the aggressive side against the builder to try and prove some sort of worth to the client. And what we're saying in there is, like, they'll be doing a report and doing quite a lot. Why are you looking at me like that, Julia?
Because you've just kind of like jumped past 4 stages.
Oh.
Keep going. You're doing great though. It's good info.
Oh, sorry guys. So anyways, as I was saying, look, I got onto a roll. Fuck. So anyway, so what happens is, sometimes you can get, and it can be almost like a bit of a scare to the homeowner they're getting a page, like a inspection report with like 20 pages of defects, and they're sitting there going, what the fuck, my house is fucked. But a lot of it is like minor things. Let's say, like I was saying, a chip on some door frames, but they're taking several photos and spacing that into a whole page for one little area. So you just got to actually read the report if you can. If not, don't think it's like the gospel type of thing. It's there as an opinion. You work on that alongside what the inspector has, what the supervisor has done with the builder. You marry both of those up, and then you go through. So it's going to be hard to find the right inspector to do it right, but these are the things to consider.
Okay, so just to summarize what they look for at PCI.
Yeah, fuck. Sorry.
PCI is the biggest one that we really recommend and endorse, because they look at the entire home at
top
essentially
to bottom, inside and out.
You know what? You've had your talking time. They look at your home at a practical completion stage, where they are checking that all the taps are working, all the light switches are working, all the gutters and downpipes, all the potential safety hazard like electrical junction boxes. The walls are painted on the door, and the doors are painted. They are checking everything top to bottom, front to back, side to side. And this is when we really recommend getting one. It's okay if you can't get one at slab, bricks or roof. At PCI is the most important one because you're already doing the inspection. That is what a practical completion inspection is. You are checking over the home. Getting a building inspector essentially just foolproofs that the house is in great shape, and very rarely do we see any major things going on. They just pick up the same things that the site supervisor and you probably would have already picked on, like scratch of paint or this
Small
tap's a little bit
chips.
leaky or
Yep.
something. You would have picked it up anyway, but it just gives you that extra peace of mind, which segues perfectly into why use a building inspector? Peace of mind.
100%. Biggest thing.
It is just giving you that second endorsement to say, yes, your home is doing fantastic. It's in great shape. There is nothing to be worried about. And all the little things that we've picked up are going to be rectified, done and dusted. Like,
Yes.
you are great, because it's a third party point of view. It's not from your point of view, where 9 times out of 10, I'd say you're a little bit undereducated on what you're looking for
100%.
as a consumer. I mean, even Nick and I, we work in the building industry, and I wouldn't be confident enough to walk through a home and do a building inspection
no.
onto it.
Fuck no.
it just-
Even with our investment bills that we're
Yep.
doing, we're going to get an inspector because also time frame
Yeah.
with us. But there's still things that I don't even know according to. I'm not a builder.
No,
Do you know
we
what I
don't
mean?
have our ticket. We don't
no,
have our
we
license.
don't have a ticket. We know a shitload, but we don't know enough to try
Confidently,
to confidently sit there or pretend to be something that we're not. So a big thing is obviously that I want to make sure whatever we do it to the top spec. And if I would consider with my own, and I still refer a lot of business to my builders, I say the exact same thing to all of my clients, because you got the way I look at your build journey is the same as if I was building it myself. So I do want to recommend the same things.
Yeah, and at your PCI, the site supervisor will be looking at everything and going through
Yes.
things with you. So chances are he or she is going to be pointing things out that you don't even notice.
Yes.
But it's just that third party point of view who's not biased towards the builder to look at everything and say, yeah, you know what the site supervisors picked up, fully agree with it, haven't picked up anything else. And that's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Which we all hope for, but it's just for that peace of mind.
100%.
So, just a quick note here. Inspection reports are always presented with a clear and comprehensive approach,
Yes.
along with evidence-based conclusions detailing the overall condition of the property. So basically, once the inspection is done, they provide you with a report. It may be 1 page, it might be 10 pages, it might be 30 pages, whatever it is, depending on the inspector. And that details everything that they have found with a recommendation of how it should be fixed. So there's a scratch in the wall, we recommend patching and painting. Simple as that.
Yeah. Again, depends with the inspector.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the, we've seen so many, and I've seen a few of the reports where they make, like I mentioned before, where they make something small seem very bad in their wording, which is where I start looking, going, this is a bit of a dick approach,
Yeah.
in my opinion, because they're just trying to, just be a prick about it. Look, sometimes you do have fucking dings on walls and shit like that. You don't need to write a whole fucking page and going, it's not according to the standards, this needs to be rectified. It's just like, hey, mate, right in there, please patch and do prior to completion or whatever it is. Something nice and simple, but there is specific wording that some inspectors have used, and we see it a lot. And it's just, why are you being a fuckwit?
It's a scare factor, essentially.
It is.
And
But I understand from their end, they got to be able to justify the cost that they're charging the client and shit like that, and by providing X amount. Again, I'm not having a rant at fucking all the inspectors. It's just we've seen some things that seem very unreasonable for what it is. It could have been approached a lot better. And you got to remember, people are so concerned right now with building. You know, there's so much shit with delays and crap like that. The last thing they want to be seeing is small things that they can get explained with the supervisor and inspector going, it's just a couple of touch-ups. We'll get them done before you moving, rather than, you know, this isn't according to the standards for this and this, and just making it sound so much worse than it is. So
yeah.
it gets hard. If any of our clients, you do get inspector or whatever, send it through to us. And if there's anything I can explain in layman terms for you and shit like that, if you're getting concerned, fucking, I'm all for it. I've done it a few times with our clients.
Yep.
Because again, some of it, you get that. So they'll be like, look, guys, if you actually read this, and this, it's just a couple of scratches, this and that. They're quoting shit. But at the end of the day, it just means touch-ups, which, according to your supervisor report, they've already picked up on the same things. They're like, oh, sweet. So we're all good. I'm like, pretty
You're all
much,
good,
except
yeah.
for this and this, that's been added into it.
Yep. So that segued quite perfectly into the next part, which is how to choose a good building inspector. So with so many inspectors out in the market, it's really difficult and overwhelming to know which building inspector is a good one. Like you've mentioned, some of them do super big reports for absolutely no reason or just overstress the client because they're making
They've gone
them scary.
over the top.
Yeah.
They've gone over the top for something that shouldn't have had to be that far in.
So what are some questions that we could say to clients to ask,
All
a
right.
building
So
inspector?
number one is, have they actually got their own builder sticker? So have they been in the trade? How long have they been in the industry? Some of them might have been a bricklayer fucking 5 years ago, done nothing, and now turned into an inspector. I wouldn't trust that. I would rather someone that's been in 2, 5, 10, 15 years in the industry, still actively in there. Might be started off as a chippy and then they got their own business and they've built a few homes. So I would look at being a registered, so they've done the course to actually become a registered builder. They've been in the industry for a while and either in several positions, like being a chippy or a bricklayer or a slab, whatever it is, or just one. Then I would also look at, do they have a separate business of doing work so they're still actively, proactively in that? So they're up to spec on what the requirements are for the building codes and shit like that on a day-to-day basis. What I would also look at is, have they built their own homes? So what I mean by that is, are they an actual builder that they're building some homes themselves? Or have they built their own personal home like an owner builder because they've got their tickets?
Yep.
Have they overlooked some, even just like doing renovation works and stuff like that? What qualifications and what experience are they providing to you? Why are you paying? So basically, you got to take yourself back out of this, right? Because you're reaching out for help, but also let them sell it to you.
Yeah.
Why the fuck should I go to you compared
choose
to
you than the next person?
than the other person? Why are you, for example, like let's say you found 3 different inspectors and they're happy to service your area, like your property. And then they go, one guy's $400, the next one's $800, the next one's $600. Why are you more than this guy, and etc. And don't sit there and go, oh, I want it cheaper. It's just what service or what value are you giving me so that I can be rest assured that it is. Do you know what I mean? That's what I would be looking at.
Yep.
And I think those are the type of questions I would probably recommend you guys actually reach out and call, especially if they're not a registered builder. Unfortunately, I wouldn't consider it myself. I would want someone that's been in the industry for a while, as well as the fact that has potentially actually worked in the building industry, like for a builder previously,
like a site
or something.
supervisor?
Yeah, if they've been a site supervisor, they've overlooked several homes, because then they know, obviously, from the project builder side or small builder side, and then they've also got the ticket, they've done their own homes, and then they've gone, I don't want to build the homes anymore, but I'm happy to try and help clients with doing inspections and pick up on things, because those type of inspectors, I reckon, are golden, because they've done it from both ends. They've done it from the actual building my own and, being real specific, as well as from a builder side where it's going, have to do it this, and this within the certain tolerances, so they can understand how it works from both ends, approaching it for the supervisor, not, making sure that it's, not being the bane of their existence, having an inspector there, but also still coming from a client or personal point of view where they've built it for themselves as well. So I think those type of inspectors would be golden.
Yep.
Because it hits both marks, and at the end of the day, those inspectors still have the client's interest best at heart, in my opinion.
So I've just got a couple things to note here as well. Now, for a building inspector, this is a service that you, as the consumer, has to pay for.
100%.
It is not something that is going to be included in your build. The builder is not going to pay this. This is something that you need to pay with your own money.
Yeah.
So just keep that one in mind, that there is a cost associated that you need to pay.
Yeah, definitely, because the builder's version is the supervisor.
Yes.
That's their inspector overviewing and supervising the job. So you're looking for someone that can do it for you as a separate third party on your behalf.
Correct.
So there are costs associated with it.
Yes. And the other note is you need to let the builder know if you are choosing to use an inspector.
Yes.
This is so that the builder can check all the relevant tickets, insurances, get the inspector to fill out a couple of forms and do their builder induction. So this is a very important step, because some builders don't let the inspector come on site.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go through. So on the technicality, when you sign the building contract, you actually transfer over the ownership of the property to the builder temporarily so that they can actually build a home, which means that no one's actually meant to be on site except for who has been approved by the builder, right? Because of insurances and everything else. So if you decide that you're at completion and you decide to just rock up because you've had a few hiccups with the builder and you just decide, fuck it, I'm bringing an inspector, and you just rock up with them, they do technically have the right to ask them to leave and to reorganize after they've provided all the information that the builder wants to then allow them on site for it. So they can't just rock up and go, oh yeah, should be right, and I'm just going to fucking walk into your thing. Technically, they'll be trespassing.
Yeah. So just to note here, it's not like the builders are saying no to an inspector.
No.
They're saying no to an inspector they haven't vetted.
Correct. They want a vet that's obviously, like we said, it's not just someone's uncle's cousin's dog's best friend that has just rocked up and, is going, I'm going to overview the whole thing and give you a report. It's going, hold on, have you got all of your tickets in place? You've got your own insurances, etc. If you've ticked all of these things, not a problem. Let's book in the time and you can come and do your inspection. And sometimes with that, some builders will organize it at the same time with your inspector and yourself. And sometimes they'll just, honestly, the supervisor will rock up, open the door, and the inspector just does their thing and then they send through the report. So it can be one of two ways as well. So don't expect that the builder will still do the complete inspection meeting as well with yourself if you've decided to choose a inspector. So why we say make sure you reach out earlier, because clear communication is the difference between a good building experience and a fucking shit experience. And from your end, if there's anything you can do to try and help the builder and let them know in advance, it can help them, because having surprises like that, it can be a little bit off-putting.
Yep.
If you think about it, let's say, for example, you guys are doing your job and then all of a sudden some random bloke came in to try and vet what you're doing. You'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
if you're aware of it, if you're aware of it, at the end of the day, it's there. You either do your job or you don't. But do you know what I mean? That's what we're trying to do. Is you got to remember the builder's still trying to do the goal, which is to build your home because you've paid for the service and within a time frame. But at the same time, they just want to make sure that whoever's actually on site, they've got the relevant tickets and insurances, because if that person falls or gets hurt or some shit, the builder can be liable for it. So they just want to do a generic cover of everything.
Yeah. Agreed. So I do want to do a little shout out because we do work with an inspector. We've partnered with one reasonably recently, maybe a couple months ago.
Well, it's been pretty recent, and the reason why is because we're actually getting quite a few inquiries from our clients going, hey, we're loving the build. Do you have an inspector that we can recommend? And we've worked with a few over the years, and it was just one of those things where I was, honestly, guys, fuck, I'm the first one to be truthful. I was just too fucking busy to try and start vetting certain inspectors, because we were seeing shit reports and good reports, and some of them would only do north of the river in Perth, and then some would only do south, and some wouldn't service the areas that we were building in. So it was getting a bit difficult, and they were giving me one price and then they were charging extra for travel and shit. So I just stopped looking into it, and it's been coming up quite recent, and I was like, you know what, fuck this. So I went out and we put up a little post on our Instagram. We had probably about 5 or 6 that actually reached out that we spoke to, and I did a bit of vetting on them, checking the things I've already basically mentioned. Have they been in the industry? How long? What have they been like? I looked at some of the reports they've done, because once I've already done reports and they send them through, then I can have a bit more. They didn't send through that, they showed me. So then I can actually have a look at how they approach things.
Yep.
Then I knew what type of approach they were going with builders. So then I could actually see, is this actually with the client's best of interest, or was there a little bit of a difference there, or like a conflict of interest where they were being more biased to the builder? So we wanted someone that was very independent. So we found, ironically, because we were doing our renovation at home, and I was spit yelling with a bloke, and he's actually a inspector, and he's actually a registered builder. So he helps to do a couple like renos and shit just to help out, and basically like a mate of a mate type of thing. And we just got spit yelling because obviously he knows about our builds, and he's like, oh mate, if you ever have anyone, I was like, actually I do, let me have a bit of a spit yarn with you. And then I was comparing him with a few others, and we ended up aligning with him. He was actually, it took a while because we agreed to things, and then I was like, oh, by the way, what are your fees? And also I want an exclusive fucking pricing for our clients, because there's people fluctuating with different costs and shit. I want a flat fee of X amount in these areas where we do a shitload of builds. Do you service them? He's like, yep, absolutely, I can. I'm like, cool, happy days. Give me a fucking price.
Yes.
And once I was happy with what he was offering as a package and as individual inspections, I was like, fuck yeah, this is the bloke. Like, I could get along with him. He's been in the industry for fucking ages. He's a registered builder. He was a supervisor. He's overlooked over 300 plus homes with some of the big and small builders. So he's been in all those areas, and I was like, this is quite comfortable. I felt quite comfortable with it. So then we aligned with him.
Yeah, and him is
this
Kyle from
Kyle,
Nowotny
yes.
Construction.
Correct.
And he has offered us an exclusive rate for all of our clients.
Correct.
So for any clients listening that does want a building inspector, reach out to us. We'll give you his paperwork.
Yeah, we'll just give you his details.
Yep.
You can reach out and book it in. We've already liaised with some of our builders, and they've already inducted, and they're happy to have him on site. So we've done all the prep work. If anyone wants him, just reach out. If you're not building with us, you can still reach out, and I've spoken with him, and he's happy to still help you guys out. Again, it's just a third party. Fucking, if you want it, it's there.
Yep.
If not, no qualms.
Right, let's plug.
Yeah,
you can
that's
find
it.
us.
Are we doing a
Oh,
overview?
okay. Let me do a summary. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, Julia!
Okay,
Fuck!
sorry.
Stop rushing it.
Shh. Let me do a summary. Okay, so this is the episode of What is a Building Inspector. We've covered the primary purposes of a building inspector, and we've covered how to become a building inspector. We've covered what a building inspector looks for, and the 3 main types of things that he might find in a report is a minor defect, a major defect, or a safety hazard. A building inspector comes out in 4 different stages: your slab, your bricks, your roof, and your practical completion inspection, or your PCI. The reason to use a building inspector, for more peace of mind. Really, that's
Honestly,
the main reason.
peace of mind.
Yeah,
It's
that's the main reason.
more about that.
We've covered a couple of reasons of how to find and choose a good building inspector. We've noted out a couple of things, which is you have to pay for the building inspector. It is not covered by anyone else. And you need to let the builder know that you are choosing to use an inspector. You cannot just rock up with one, because chances are they might not be allowed on site for multiple reasons.
Yep.
And we did a shout out for Kyle from Nowotny Construction, who is a building inspector that we partner with.
Absolutely, because it's one of those things we do, like with our epoxy flooring and the hoists and everything. We like to try and work on with someone that we know will do a really good job and is unbiased and just can fucking deliver on what they say.
Yep. Okay, now let's plug.
Yep, plug.
You can find us on
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Google, our website, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
Woo.
Oh, wait, and YouTube.
Oh, and YouTube. Oh, yeah, you missed YouTube.
Yes.
I've now even listed it out here. And if you guys are able, please leave a review or rating if you have found this helpful. Hopefully you have
like and subscribe,
something
guys.
new.
Yes.
And just remember, guys, we're not here.
To fuck spiders.
Bye.
Bye.